Hi everyone, welcome to my review of Julian Schnabel's At Eternity's Gate from 2018. So yes, I saw this film tonight for the first time, and I simply wanted to give this a brief, perhaps, discussion, and of course, no spoilers this time round. Although, having said that, I think maybe this film is best to kind of go in unaware of different elements, at least in terms of how this is going to be made, and how it's going to kind of portray perhaps, of course, Van Gogh's life. Of course, yes, if you don't want any kind of element of surprise perhaps taken away from your initial experience, perhaps just skip ahead and then, of course, come back to this review once you've seen the film perhaps. But yes, I think this film clearly seems like it's gone under the radar quite a bit, and I was very interested in seeing this, eventually, of course, and being very interested, of course, in Van Gogh, and just seeing a film that kind of portrays his final years. I was wondering how this is going to be approached. This is not a film that kind of covers his entire life or anything like that, but it is a film that really does deliver in so many areas in terms of just getting to the roots, of this individual, and the way in which art, throughout the film is portrayed, and of course, just the artist, and how this is kind of one of them films that portrays, so wonderfully a struggling artist. And of course, this film, as I say, it's probably gone under the radar quite a bit, it seems, because I found this film personally to be absolutely stunning in so many regards. I think it's a wonderful achievement, and the acting, of course, really is something else. Of course, Willem Dafoe playing Vincent Van Gogh, and of course Rupert Friend playing Theo, his brother. You've got Oscar Isaac in the film, of course. And yes, just a big cast here. Mathieu, Amalric, in this film as well, and it's just so much talent here, and this is really such a wonderful film, and I think the performances here, really are something else. Of course, seeing Van Gogh's final years, it's quite something in the way this is portrayed, and how it kind of, this film, the way it's shot, the way it's kind of the way this film becomes a spiritual experience, and just kind of covers, the final years of Van Gogh's life, it just feels so kind of honest and sincere in the way that this is kind of portrayed, and I think it really is just something that really stunned me in so many areas, and just a real a stunning achievement, and a real surprise. I think this film definitely deserves more credit, and I would recommend this to anyone who's interested in Van Gogh. I would just think seeing a film about a struggling artist, really is something that I'd highly recommend to anyone. There's so much going on in this film, despite kind of portraying mainly the final years of Van Gogh's life. Many different themes in this film, of course, and different individuals as well. Paul Gauguin, played by Oscar Isaac, who is a great actor in my opinion. He is so great in this film, and I love the kind of scenes in the first half, especially between those two characters, individuals, actors, of course. Wonderful chemistry here, and just seeing the different perspectives, I feel, on art in general, specifically, of course, paintings, and the way in which they kind of outlook on life, affects their kind of their work. This is something else. This is something the film really taps into. Is the kind of the correlation, maybe. It's one of them films tapping into the correlation, between art, and life, humanity, and just seeing this, seeing with this struggling artist, most of his life, of course, just kind of being rejected, not being appreciated. Vincent Van Gogh, and of course. This film really shows that, shows the struggle, shows the kind of the pain here, but it has got these warm characters, Theo, of course, and Paul Gauguin as well, as I've been saying, and just the scenes were there together, and the conversation, dialogue to this film is really stunning, and I just love the way in which related to these characters, and the dialogue, particularly between them, and kind of trying to get away from it all, kind of thing, and trying to find peace so they can slowly work through perhaps there are kind their work and slowly kind of produce something, not being rushed, perhaps. That's something that's highly relatable. Really is wonderfully portrayed in this film, and the essence of time in that sense is really kind of explored, very subtle ways, I feel, and I think this film really, for what it was, kind of portraying the final years just of this individual's life, it really felt so complete and just really blew me away, and really highly emotional film, I feel, and the unique feeling this film has, really just the way the film is shot. I've heard around an estimation of around 90% of the film is kind of natural lighting, and I could see, this film really was doing something very, very different, in its visual storytelling. There's not too many films made like this anymore, and I think just to see, a film that's using handheld, cameras, in this way, but to a way in which it kind of achieves, a real mastery of this in the way it's kind of relating to the whole, the character of Van Gogh, and just the experience, in the way in which we're kind of seeing it from his perspective, in this fantastical way, and the way in which the camera, moves, glides around, shaky cam, of course, some could say, but, I think it's done in such a way that's very, very different to a number of films, and actually really achieves, in my opinion, something quite remarkable, really, really stunning stuff, and the way in which, the kind of the colours, are used as well. The colour palette to this film really stunning. Blew me away. In a visual department, this is stunning to behold. The scenery in this film, wow, this is a beautiful film to look at, and just this whole experience, the beauty of this film is really something to behold, and it's not just a film that's a wonderful visual piece of film. This is something that's really digging into these characters, the humanity of this, and just a wonderful character study. Although keeping the mystery, of this character and maybe different events. I'm not going to get into, as I say, specifically this film, but perhaps different events, leaving this mystery to them, kind of ambiguous nature this film has, despite being very, very honest, and just sincere in the way it's made, and the way it's kind of portraying this individual. And I think just a real wonderful film, this complex, simple at the same time, and just really, in the end, an entirely spiritual experience. This, it really is kind of, wow, a film that really, uplifted me, moved me, and just took me to another place. As a period piece as well, this is really something to kind of get so immersed in this film, the way it kind of transported me to a particular time, of course, the 19th century. This is something to behold. It really, really is, and I was so impressed, seeing a film like this. Really, really just pleased me in so many regards, this film, and I think just the way in which, the costumes, of course, and just the whole kind of feel and look of this film, really is something else. Really wowed me in so many areas. The editing as well, it's so kind of unique. It's kind of, it is quite sporadic, and I think at times, it doesn't work perfectly. I feel that there's a few flaws to this film, not too many at all. The editing at times may be a little bit kind of flawed in the way in which, for example, perhaps, because this film has a wonderful flow for the majority of the runtime, but I think there is moments, in this film where perhaps, it's maybe a bit too abrupt in the way that kind of, perhaps the music stops, or simply the music kicks in again, and just some of the narration and the way it kind of, it kind of cuts off at times. It's very choppy at times, and I think, of course, that's one of the kind of effects it's going for, but it just slightly took me out of the experience, the actual fantastical nature of this, the escapist feeling, just the investment, just a little bit at times, very minor quibble with this film, but I think this film really overall, the editing is quite unique. It really, really is, and I think the narration, itself, really is something to kind of, relating so much to the kind of to the character and what this film is trying to say. Again, kind of, simple at times. Other times, you can kind of say it's very ambiguous in what it's trying to do. But again, I'm not going to get into this film in specifics. That's maybe for another discussion. But this film really just blew me away. And I think just the first half in particular just invested me so much. I was kind of so caught up in this film, this experience, and I think, as I've said, this is very, very spiritual. This film, and just the way in which this film really elevated me, and just put me in the kind of into the kind of perspective of this individual in a particular way. As a viewer, it really kind of drew me in so many different ways, and I think just the warmth of the film. It's a very gentle film, although again, it's kind of it's quite raw. It's quite shocking. This film actually, it's quite visceral, as well in different areas, and I think, but it has this gentility, this poetic nature, this kind feeling, really, really relaxing feeling that just really spoke to me and just comforted me in different ways. And I think it really is a film to check out, for everyone who is at least mildly interested in seeing this. I think it'd be great to hear your thoughts on the film, and I think yes, an absolute great film. This it really, really is. Instantly, it just kind of was investing me in so many regards. I think this doesn't quite kind of reach this kind of masterpiece status, but it is definitely masterpiece of visuals. Really is something else. The cinematography to this film, everything, the lighting, the kind of the framing here, the way in which the kind of the landscape shots, the landscapes are captured, and of course the way in which we're kind of really up close and personal at times as well. It's kind of a wonderful juxtaposition, of different techniques, different shots, and the different varying shots in this film. Just a wonderful way in which we're kind of drawn in, and the way in which it sustains this investment to for this entire runtime. Really, it's quite something to behold, and yeah, it's just a wonderful film, really, from the get-go. So overall, my final rating for this film, based on my first watch, of course, because this could, who knows, certainly grow on me even more. But based on my first watch, my initial thoughts, on this film, I'm going to give this an extremely high score of a 94%. Yes, really, I think, really thinking on the way the film spoke to me, just enraptured me, it transfixed me for most of the duration. Based on that, I think I really have to give this a 94. I think it's just, stunning achievement, and I think the warmth of this, the gentility, the sincerity, of course, the kind of realism and the fantastical nature of this whole experience, I think really is something else. And just the intrigue at first, and the way in which it completely absorbed me, really, in some way for most of the runtime. I think this could maybe have got, if it was as good as the first half, in the second half, I think it could have got a couple percentage maybe higher than this, or at least a percentage more. But I think the second half is not quite as kind of as wonderful, really, just as quite as investing, but really I love the entire film, and I think the ending as well, wonderful stuff. I think just a wonderful achievement, this. The performances, of course, Willem Dafoe, Oscar Isaac, particularly great as well, in terms of supporting cast, just really stunning. Rupert Friend, Mads Mikkelsen as well, a very small kind of role as well in the film, and yes, just wonderful cast, really something else. And I think the way in which this is told, visually, is something else. I think just the way in which I was so at peace, with this film. That's the thing. Just really, as I've been talking about the film, it's just being reminded of just how peaceful this film is, how spiritual it is, just the natural beauty to this film, and just yes, the dialogue. It's a real maybe not kind of a dialogue heavy film, but when it is there, it really is so wonderful, so true to life, and just a complex film, very very human film indeed, and just the one that really speaks to, you know, speaks to me, and just the way in which the struggling artist, is portrayed, of course, in his final years, but really, despite being, very specifically the final years, it has a real, a massive scope, I feel, but at the same time, highly personal work. This a real personal endeavor, and just a wonderful spiritual experience that I got lost in. For so much of the runtime, and just a beautiful, beautiful film. The visuals, as I've said, the scenery, just seeing all this, a real, wonderful, wonderful film. So peaceful, so lovely, so kind. This film, and so raw as well at times, and just overall a wonderful, really wonderful film. A great film indeed. So yes, we'll wrap up. Of course, tell me your thoughts on this film. What do you think of this? Whatever the case, of course, it'd be great to know. And because as I say, it's kind of under the radar, a little bit. It seems at least, and not too talked about. So it'd be great to discuss, as always, with you viewers, and just in general, cinema. As always, we talk, film on this channel, and it's always great to do so. And yes, I think. This film, personally, wonderful biographical film, and it'd be great to hear what you think on it. What's your take, and have you seen the film? Of course, but I'd highly recommend it. If you haven't seen this particular endeavour, and yes, regardless, let's discuss. And yes, I look forward to kind of doing more reviews again soon. I've not been, as I say, too prolific very recently, and I look forward to getting a kind of a flow of some sense, back into these reviews, and just getting more reviews out there again in a consistent fashion. Just different things I've got planned, right around the corner, and of course in the near future as well, and more long-term plans for lists perhaps. Yes, indeed, and just in general different works to review, to discuss different film-related topics on the channel. So yes, of course, as always, take care, and yes, thanks for watching.